I've often thought about this quandary. How does being inherently great or perceiving yourself to be great, these are two very different things, potentially interfere with your ability to be good or better? The Italian Renaissance painter Andrea del Sarto is an example of his own inherent greatness as an artist impeding his ability to be better. In his collection, Lives of the Artist, Giorgio Vasari writes of Del Sarto, quote, there was a certain timidity of mind, a sort of diffidence and want of force in his nature, which rendered it impossible that those evidences of ardor and animation which are proper to the more exalted character should ever appear in him, unquote. Del Sarto, who was born in 1486 and died in 1530, was a Florentine painter, and he was widely admired during his lifetime for his nearly flawless technique. He painted, it was said, senza errori, or without error. His reputation has subsequently been eclipsed by his more renowned and skilled contemporaries, who included Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, and Michelangelo, as well as by his immediate predecessor, another Florentine and my favorite of all Italian Renaissance painters, Domenico Ghirlandaio. Vasari, a gossip as much as a biographer, has a theory about Del Sarto's failures as a person and as an artist. He lays the blame for Del Sarto's failures squarely at the feet of the painter's wife, Lucrezia, quote, a most beautiful girl who, though born of a poor and vicious father, carried about her as much pride and haughtiness as beauty and fascination. She delighted in trapping the hearts of men, and among others ensnared the unlucky Andrea, whose immoderate love for her soon caused him to neglect the studies demanded by his art, unquote. Her beauty, Vasari tells us, quote, appearing to Del Sarto to merit thus much at his hands, and his love for her having more influence over him than the glory and honor towards which he had begun to make such hopeful advances. He soon became jealous and found that he had, besides, fallen into the hands of an artful woman who made him do as she pleased in all things, unquote. Vasari also tells us that Lucrezia was faithful, jealous, and vixenous with the apprentices. Vasari, who often relied on innuendo and hearsay when compiling his short biographies, had actually been one of Del Sarto's apprentices. So, in this instance, perhaps he knows whereof he speaks. All of that sexism and misogyny aside, Vasari tells us that after Del Sarto's work attracted the attention of the French king, Francois I, he moved to Paris to work for the king's court. Despite his success there, Lucrezia wrote begging for him to return home, using in Vasari's characterization, quote, sweet words well calculated to move the heart of the luckless man who loved her but too well. She drove the poor soul half out of his wits. He resolved to resume his chain and preferred the life of wretchedness with her to the ease around him and to all the glory which his art must have secured to him, unquote. Despite having pledged to return to Paris and the king after a brief visit home, quote, Andrea del Sarto remained in Florence and from a highly eminent position sank to the very lowest, procuring a livelihood and passing his time as he best might. Andrea now began to feel not that the beauties of his wife had become wearisome, but that the mode of his life was an oppression to him. His error had become in part apparent to his perceptions. He saw that he could never lift himself from the earth, though perpetually toiling, he did so to no purpose, unquote. Much of what Vasari recounts about Del Sarto is believed to be apocryphal. Regardless of the accuracy of the account, however, it was the source material for Robert Browning's own portrait of the painter. In the eponymous poem, the doomed relationship between Del Sarto and his wife is the frame within which Browning explores themes that are of more interest to him, the relationship between artist and his art, as well as the destructive power of complacency. Browning's Andrea del Sarto is a melancholy man who has lost his way and has indeed come to understand that his wife is not faithful and his marriage is not a source of comfort, let alone inspiration. Here's part of the poem. But do not let us quarrel anymore. No, my Lucrezia, bear with me for once. Sit down, and all shall happen as you wish. You turn your face, but does it bring your heart? I'll work then for your friend's friend, never fear. Treat his own subject after his own way. fix his own time, accept to his own price, and shut the money into this small hand when next it takes mine. Will it? Tenderly, a common grayness silvers everything, all in a twilight, you and I alike. But more important to Browning's project is Del Sarto's grappling with his recognition and his unwillingness to accept that the extraordinary talents he possesses are not enough, have never been enough in and of themselves to elevate his art to the level of the sublime. His dawning awareness that he is ultimately the only one responsible for having squandered his potential and the reasons for his having squandered it remain beyond his ability to acknowledge. Quote, no sketches first, no studies, that's long past. I do what many dream of all their lives. Dream, strive to do, and agonize to do, and fail in doing. I could count 20 such on twice your fingers and not leave this town, who strive, you don't know how the others strive, to paint a little thing like that you smeared carelessly passing with your robes afloat, yet do much less, so much less. Someone says, I know his name, no matter, so much less. Unquote. The lines that initially struck me in this poem and that I initially misunderstood, having taken them out of context, were I do what many dream of all their lives. Dream, strive to do, and agonize to do, and fail in doing. Those lines and the tone of resignation that runs throughout the poem reminded me of my father and the fact that his extraordinary accomplishments ended up being for naught. As he floundered, his unaccomplished and unworthy younger brother usurped his position and his fortune. While Andrea del Sarto is about lost potential, ill advised compromise, and the consequences of both, it's also a meditation on the idea that greatness without effort is unsustainable, which has much relevance to our current circumstances. American exceptionalism is based on the belief that this country is de facto superior to other countries, that our way of being, our culture, our beliefs should never be challenged and changed. This has led to complacency and a failure to challenge the status quo. Worse, it has led to an insupportable arrogance and a steady degradation of things upon which our ideas of being exceptional are based. If you believe you possess a greatness that is imminent, whether as a country or an individual, there is no need to strive to be good. One of the diseases that ravaged my family was a delusion that Donald, of all people, was great, while somebody like my father, a professional pilot at the dawn of the jet age, was a loser. When families operate in service to perpetuating such delusions, you get a thin skinned, constantly aggrieved bully. When countries operate in similar fashion, we get a weakened system that bends constantly towards one person's dysfunction and the potential for ruin. As Browning's Del Sarto exclaims, quote, ah, but a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for, unquote. And then there's his grudging recognition that he has failed in this too, saying, quote, all is silver gray, placid and perfect with my art, the worse, unquote. And we too are so much the worse for that. Please take a second and like and share this video. Be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.